So, what's a favorite quote that you live by?
Yeah.
I
So
know
one
we
of
talked
my,
about it,
oh,
but
sure.
yours is
Yeah.
a little bit longer.
Yeah. It's one that I probably forget more than I should, but it's one of the ones that always comes to mind when people ask me this question. It's by Winston Churchill. And it's when I look back on all these worries, I remember the story of the old man who said on his deathbed that he had had a lot of trouble in his life, most of which had never happened.
I really like it. It's so deep.
Yes, very, very deep.
So, unpack it
Yeah,
just a little. That last
yeah,
part is the biggest part, I think.
yeah. I mean, it's so easy, I think, I get caught up in, especially along this entrepreneurial journey. It's just there's so many things that you could be worried about, and it's really hard to just sit and take it in and know that, you're just like, for me, I'm having an experience. Like, I'm very privileged, so I can't really sit here and say that, I don't have any kids, I don't have like a family to feed, right? Thankfully, my parents emigrated from, my dad grew up poor in Nigeria and got a Fulbright scholarship to study at the University of Pittsburgh. He got his master's and his PhD. That was all paid for. We ended up moving to a great school district in Long Island.
Hmm.
One of the best public school districts in the country. And, I was fortunate enough to be around these really smart kids and get myself into a great school. And so it's something that I don't take for granted. That being said, I do have, a lot of, worries. Sometimes they're about money. Sometimes they're about, success, of course, dating and all that type of stuff. And so sometimes it's important to just sit back and just realize that, like, life is at least my life. I can't talk about
Hmm.
anybody else, is pretty good, overall. Like, I could have stayed at my job and continued to make, money working in finance. I still work in finance a little bit, but to me, it was more important to deal with the calling of, like, my soul, or like my being. And so sometimes I forget, but it's hard. I try to, when I find myself worrying, I just try to write or listen to music or do something. I actually like working with clay just to get my mind off it, because most of the time, at least in my case, most of my worries are not that significant. And when I actually logically consider them, then I can just take action on them instead of them building up and creating a catastrophe down the road, or just frankly never happening. I just went through life anxious.
Hmm.